Getting ready to start disassembling everything. I already pulled all the, 6, 8 bed bolts all the way around. That sucker is stuck up on there, so I got to crawl up underneath there and disassemble a lot more. Apparently, it's not like a typical American bed. You just pull off the bed bolts and take the bed off. So it's gonna be fun. Definitely gonna be fun. So a quick little walk around of what's been going on. Trying to get this thing all jacked up in the air so I can pull the motor and whatever else. I've already pulled the wiring harness from the rear, leveled everything that I could, all the way up to the inside of the cab. I just got to figure out how to get the jacks like that I have in the rear, the pipe jacks up in the front. Well, I couldn't get it up in regular, my normal orange jack. So I was trying to figure out ways, and instead of doing what I normally do with 2x4s and blocks and all kinds of other crap trying to get it up, I came up with this bright idea. Well, I built this dead-gum gantry with trailer jacks on all 4 corners so I can get it off the wheels. That way I ain't got to worry about it rolling off the edge. Should have parked the truck a little further back, but I got just enough room to get it. So let's see how well this sucker works. Record all this so I don't anything happens. Shoot, I think it's working out pretty good. All right. Number one reason why I got that dead-gum bug zapper up there. That's all the bugs. They're flying around my dead-gum shop with me. Looking like sawdust or something. Works like a charm though. Quick little learning deal. So how I'm going to get the suspension and everything perfectly lined up. I got this little laser light set up. It aligns the top bolt, very point of that, on the floor. I'm doing that on both sides. That way, once I have everything mocked up, there should be a dot right there. Okay. Do the same thing on the front, down the center of the frame. I mark off all 4 corners. Now I take my chalk line, and I'm going to pop a chalk line and have a perfectly square replica of how my frame's shaped, and then that way I can find me the dead center of it, know exactly where to mount my transfer case, that divorce transfer case I got, and then I've got a full basis of everything I can do. So I'll be taking a little video here and there, showing of everything. But yeah, this is the first step into getting your alignment right as far as building your whole suspension setup. I didn't come up with this, saw this online, but figured I'd pass on the knowledge to y'all. Alright, it's 3 a.m. Finally got this. Motor and trans fully pulled. This thing is tiny. 660cc 12 valve. It get it up to close to 60 on the road, but getting a lot more power than what it came with. Still got to pull that whole front differential and CV axles and everything out, but I got most of the majority of the hard part done. A little update. The new motor that's going in the very rear of this truck is sitting right here. The LQ460 with the 2.3 liter Whipple supercharged that came off a Mercury motor. I got to convert it over to make an adapter for it, make it run. Anyway, so here's the update on the truck. Alright, about midnight 10 right now. Finally got this whole truck gutted. Only thing I left in there was the wiring harness and the brake lines. Ready to start running my lines, get everything squared up. That way I get me a good basis to where I can frame up my new suspension for the 4-link. Alright, so that mark right there represents the bottom of the bed. That mark up top, it represents the top bed rail. So going off of that, I got my laser set up. And that's where it's going to fall. That's how much of the motor will be sticking up out the bed. Just the heads, basically. Heads and spark plugs. It just seems real far forward, about a foot further, what I was wanting. So I can expand it out. There you go. Compared to the rear. Let's see if you can see it. So that's what's going on. Alright, so I just took up the measurements. That 2x4, roughly close enough, basically right here is where that rear shock is going to be going. Coming up to the front, I wanted to line it up with the fender well, make it look more, semi-factory like. That only gives me 16 inches from the tip of that daggum shaft. Now, if I were to move it forward, talking about the axle that is, to where it's kind of in line right here, about where that jack is, that'll put me at 44 inches. So I'd have 44 inches from the front of that shaft to the axle. And then for the rear, it's at 51. So that's what I'm looking at right now. So I may have to rethink my game plan and have to do it the way I didn't really want to do it, but if I want to not have as drastic of a drive shaft angle, that's maybe what I have to do. Alright, so what I'm thinking about doing now, sent y'all a photo, is instead of trying to keep the motor up out the bed, maybe placing the whole sucker down below the bed and encasing it in plexiglass. Being I'm going to have the radiator and everything in the back, being fan cooled. But encasing it in plexiglass, that way I can still see everything. It'll be, kept away from the elements, probably even more. That way I ain't got to worry about mud getting on sensors, spark plugs, everything else. Because right now, if you look at it, that transfer case don't hang very far below that frame. If I drop it down an extra 6 inches, probably like 6 inches or more, I'll be able to have a lot better drive shaft angle for lining it up at the front where this 2x4 is, and for the rear. So that's what I've been kind of coming up with, looking at it. I mean, I hate to not be able to use my fender well like I wanted to for the tire, but I want to keep this thing as stable as possible, not have no crazy drive shaft angle. What it came out to, like 55 degrees, I think. So I'd rather not have a drive shaft like that. I don't want to extend the whole thing, because that kind of defeats the purpose of a small body truck, you know. Alright, so I redid it. Can't even talk. So looks like I need to bring it up a hair, but that line's to the bottom of the truck bed. Kind of get an idea where that level is. So you can see that. Anyway, so after the truck bed will fall, I'll leave basically just the intake above the bed. Might be pretty neat to see just a blower sticking about the bed, but raised it up 10 inches higher than I initially wanted to do. But now I'll have plenty of clearance for everything. And I probably will go ahead and just move that axle up forward about where this jack is. Hate to do it that way, but if I want to run 54s or 60s or anything like that, is what I got to do. Besides trying to stretch this whole bed out and make it look a little bit different. Alright, I'm calling it a night. Got the motor where I want it. Got the transfer case mounted up. Or the case mount, I should say. I still got to build the rest of the whole subframe. Finally got all that lined out where I needed it. Didn't come out half bad. Yeah, I still got to build a frame all the way from where that jack is all the way to the back here. Been running it about right here, the rear shock. Just a little update.